Okay, we are on the bottom of Nun Beis. Today's daf is Nun Aleph. We are discussing the sugya of Shira, and is Iker Shira Bekli or Iker Shira Bapeh, which means is the essential part of song the instruments, or are they also an essential part of a song, or is Iker Shira's Bapeh and the instruments are only secondary? Rabbi Yosef understood that everybody agrees when it comes to Simchas Beis HaShoeva that would not be Deich Shabbos or Yom Tov, and the machloikis of Kli Shir being Deich Shabbos is by the Shir Shel Karban, the Shir Shel Yeh. Okay, that's what we're in the middle of. So Amar Papa. That's the last three words of Nun Rebeis, top of Nun Aleph Amid Aleph, Ketanoi. This machlekes, whether Iker Shir Bapeh or Iker Shira Bakli, is actually a machlekes Tanoim. The Tanaim we learned in a Mishnah. This Mishnah is discussing who would play the instruments in the Beis HaMikdash by the Shir Shel Yom, the Shir Shel Karban. Who played the instruments? So I don't know. I always assumed it was the Levim who played the instruments, but apparently it's a three-way machlekes Tanoim. Says the Gemara, Abdi Kahanim Hayu. Meir says it wasn't even Kahanim, wasn't Levim. It wasn't Israel. It was Avadim were the ones who would play the instruments. Rabbi Yosi Mishpachas Beis Hapagrim Mishpachas Beis Hatzefira Uma'amu Ume'umam Hayu. These were families that came from this place called Umam, who were very miyuchistic people. They all had great yichus, and therefore Shahayu Masiyan LaKahuna. They, being whether it was a woman who became an almana or girls in general that would marry Kehanim, because they were from those families from that place were miyuchas to be Yisraelim. So it was Yisraelim who would sing, who would play the instruments. Reb Chanina ben Antigonus Omer Leviim Hayu. It was the Leviim that would sing, that would play the instruments in the Beis HaMikdash. So it says, wouldn't it make sense to say that the machlokes here is whether playing instruments is part of the Avodah? The mandam ravadim hayu. If you held that slaves could be the ones playing the instruments, kasaver ikashir bepeh, you must hold that the essential part of song is what's done by the mouth, and the rest is the instruments are just extras, and therefore even ravadim could play those. Umanda amar leviim hayu, and those that held that it was leviim who were the ones playing the instruments, kasaver ikashir bekli. They must hold that the shira. The essential part of the shira is the musical instruments that come along with it, and therefore that needs to be done by Leviim. Shmaka machlekes. In fact, Gemara, 1 second. You explained the two extremes. What about the middle shita? Rabbi Yosi, who said that it was Yisraelim. V'tizber, Rabbi Yosi, Micah Savar. According to your logic, what does Rabbi Yosi hold? Ika Savar, Ika Shir Bepeh. Then if you love Adam Nami, slaves should be good too. Ika Savar, Ika Shir Bekli. Then Leviim in Yisraelim loy. Then Yisraelim shouldn't work as either. So what kind of a shita would you have that would allow for Yisraelim to be playing the shira, to be playing the instruments? Ella rather do kuli alma ikashir b'peh. So we want to say no. We don't like what you said to Papa, that this was the machlekes tanaim. Rather, it would make more sense to say that everybody holds that song is done b'peh, and musical instruments are extra. And this is what the machlekes is. The marsavar hachi have a ma'isa, marsavar hachi have a ma'isa. It's just the machlekes. What happened? Like who actually did it? So it's like, we don't have machlekes like that. L'may nafkamina. Who would care? Like, who really cares? I mean, it's nice to know. It's like a historical fact that we don't need a machlekes tanaim on historical fact on what happened. What's the nafkamina practically? Oh, this is big nafkamina, says the Gemara. If you knew that someone duchened, so were you able to make assumptions based on that? If you knew someone went up to the duchen, meaning whether you knew that someone played a musical instrument in the Beis HaMikdash, so does that mean anything? Oh, that's the machlekes. The one who says that they were avadim kasaver ein malam duchen liyuchzin v'lo l'maiser. Then if someone, just because the guy played the instrument, that was meaningless in terms of Yuchsin and in terms of Ma'aser. Manda Amar Yisrael Hayu. if you held that it was Yisrael Kasavar, Ma'al Miduchan Liyuchsin. That means if you know that someone played an instrument, then you can assume he was Miyuchis, because they wouldn't let someone who was not a Miyuchis play the instruments in the Beis Hamikdash. But it doesn't mean anything for Meiser. The one who holds that it was Leviim, that means he holds, if you know a Levi, if you know someone who's up there on the Duchen playing an instrument, you can give him Meiser. So that's the machlokes in that Mishnah. Okay. Now the Gemara, until now we've been all going with the assumption of Rabbi Yosef, that was that the machlokes in basically Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, whether or not the instruments would be Deicha Yamtiv, Shabbos or Yamtiv, was only regarding the Shira Shel Yom, but regarding the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, everybody agrees that it is not Deicha. It's Simcha Yisera. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba Amar, he argues on that. Machlokes b'shir shel she'eva. He says the machlokes is by the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda Savar Simcha Yisera nami deiches HaShabbos. V'Rabbanan Savar Simcha Yisera eina deiches HaShabbos. The machlokes is whether you're deicha, whether the Simchas Beis HaShoeva is deicha Shabbos, whether you could be matzket for Simcha Yisera. Rashi says that Rabbi Yossi says that it's Simcha Yisera nami deicha Shabbos. Rashi says a little less than halfway down in the Rashis, Hoil v'simchas mitzvahi. Since the simcha is a mitzvah, ubechalil ein isur malacha el shvus ba'alma, and playing the chalil is only a shvus, and it is a mitzvah of simcha, so may it be deicha Shabbos and Yom Tov Shabbos and Yom Tov as well. Aval b'shir shel carbon, when it comes to the carbon, divrei hakoil avoidi, everybody holds that that's an avoida. Shabbos, and therefore it could push off Shabbos. So it sounds like right now the Gemara is assuming that for sure Iker Shira is Bekli, and therefore it's Deicha Shabbos. The Machlokes is just by the Simcha Beis HaShoeva, where it's Simcha Yisera, if that would be Deicha Shabbos. Gemara says, Meisei, this is a challenge to Rabbi Yosef, I think. Says the Gemara, Shir Shel She'eva Deicha Shabbos, Div Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. So says the Gemara, it's clear here that they're arguing about the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. The Rabbi Yehuda is being matter for the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, and the Chacham are answering for the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, even Yom Tov. So to Yufta, the Rabbi Yosef, to Yufta. That shlives up Rabbi Yosef. Okay, but that's only on one Nakuda. That we see here that they argue by the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. Okay, but what about the by Shir Shal Yom? Do they argue by that as well? It says, let's say that it's here, meaning we only have a machlekes here by the Simchas HaShoeva. That would be mashma that by the shir shel carbon, everybody would agree that it's Deicha Shabbos. It sounds like it's machlekes on Rabbi Yosef on both accounts. Rabbi Yosef, so Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yosef would answer and say, not really argue by both. They argue by both. So why does their discussion revolve around the Simchas Beis HaShoeva? That's to show you the kayach the hetera. That that even Simchas Beis HaShoeva would be deicha Shabbos and Yom Tov. Okay, that's in fact the Gemara. 1 second. But we do have a Mishnah that says that the Simchas Beis HaShoeva is not the Deicha Shabbos and Yom Tov. That was our Mishnah. It sounds like this one, it's not Deicha, right? Mash meaning the Mishnah sounds like it's going like the Chacham, and it says that it's not Deicha Shabbos and Yom Tov. Mashma though, it sounds like this is not Deicha Shabbos and Yom Tov. Mashma, there's another time where you're allowed to play musical instruments on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Aval the carbon Deicha, but for a carbon it would be Deicha, and you would be able to play the Chalil. Money. Who's that going like? Well, it can't be Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda because he holds it's even Deicha the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. Elalav must be the Rabbanon. So it must be the Tan of our Mishnah is the Rabbanan. And the Rabbanan is saying that Zehu, it's Dafka this, that is not the Chashav Yantiv Mashma, that of a carbon it is, and that's a Yufta and Rabbi Yossi, but Betarti to Yufta. So we upshot Rabbi Yossi on both accounts. My timer, the Manda Amar Ikashir Repair. Okay, let's get to sources here. What's the source? What's the reason of the Manda Amar that says that Ikashir is Beper? No, is Bekli. Sorry, my time the Manda the Amar Ikashir Bekli, that musical instruments are an essential part of Shira. The Chsiv, the pasuk says, "But Yemer Chizkiyo." This is Nivrei Yom, and she counting when Chizkiyo it's brought back the Beis Hamikdash into full service. He says, "Lahalis ha'olah mizbech." Bring the olah to the mizbech. Ubeis hachel ha'olah, and when the olah begins, hechel shir Hashem, begin the song to Hashem. Va'chatzitzis, and the trumpets by the kli David Melchis Yisrael, with using the instruments of David HaMelech. So you see that the kli shir are part of Shir Hashem. Okay, my time the mandam ikar shir b'peh the chsiv. So this is a pasuk in also the Yem. This is discussing now in the beginning when Shlomo built the Beis Hamikdash. It says vayi ka'achad l'machatzitzrim u'l'meshevrim lashmiya kol echad. It sounds like he's telling that the machatzitzrim and the meshevrim, those blowing trumpets, and the singers should make sure they hear their voice at the same time. So it's mashma dafka the chatzaitzers. The chatzaitzers were not considered klei shir because there was a mitzvah of tekiah, of blowing the trumpets, that was not part of the shira. So it sounds like dafka those were lashmiya kol echad needed to be sounded at the same time, and therefore the rest of the klei zemer would not be considered part of the shira. That's how Rashi learns. Taisus doesn't like that because if you go to the rest of the pasuk there, if you look at the Taisus, l'machatzitzim u'l'meshevrim, so way down he quotes the whole pasuk in Nivrei Yamin. It says l'machatzitzim u'l'meshevrim lashmiya kol echad l'halal u'l'hodes l'Hashem u'keharim kol b'chatzitzis u'b'mitzlatayim u'b'klei ashir u'b'hal Hashem ki tov ki le'olam chazdei. So you see the pasuk mentions the klei shir also, that they were doing their job. So, what do you see from this pasuk? So Tesa says, because the pasuk divides the trumpets and the singers, divides it. Right? It says that they were lashmiya kol echad, lahal u'lhodes l'Hashem, and then it says that you're going to have all the instruments playing b'halal Hashem. Kitev, and they were saying Kitev Lashem Kitev Kilom Chasnei. So because the pasuk breaks them up, it sounds like Ikashir is Bepeh, and the Klei Hashir are just coming to make it sound nicer. So says the Gemara, that's well each pasuk, each Manda Amar now has to deal with the other pasuk. So my time the Manda Amar, okay, V'idach Lami Yaksev V'yemer Chizkiyo. What do you do with the pasuk of Chizkiyo? It sounds like that the Shir Hashem is both with the kalim of the klei shir of David Melch Yisrael. Hachigamar Hachil Shir Hashem b'peh. Start singing the Shir Hashem with your mouth. Ayidei klei David Melch Yisrael b'sumei kala, and use the instrument just to make it sound nicer. V'idach nami yaksev ahika echad m'chatzim l'shayrim. Hachigamar m'shayrim dumi de m'chatzim. Ma m'chatzim b'kli av m'shayrim b'kli. Just like you blew trumpets with a trumpet, so too the Mesherim, those who sang, should also use a kli to do their song. They should have musical instruments included. Okay, so that's the maskana here of the Gemara. The maskana of the Gemara. It sounds like if we're the Rabbanan, if we're going to go like Rabbi Yirmiyah here, Bar Abba, not like Rabbi Yosef. So everybody agrees that it was part of the Avodah, but the Machlek is only by Simcha. So it sounds a little bit like that. If it was used on Shabbos by the Shir Shayim, so maybe it sounds like that. If that's Machlekes, then Iker Shira would be Bekli. I got to check that out. Zag di Mishnah weiter. One who didn't see the joy, the happiness of the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, Le'ra Simcha Miyam, never saw Simcha in his days. But the Mishnah now is going to describe the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. Might say Yom Tov Harishan Shulchad. After the first night of Yom Tov, so the first night of Chol Moed, Yardu LeEzra's Nashim, the Kahanim and Levim would go down from the Ezras Yisrael into the Ezras Nashim to set up. And they erected a great remedy there, which the Gemara will discuss. There were lamps of gold. Rashi says they were 50 amas high. And each lamp had 4 basins of gold on top of them. And there was a ladder going up to each one. And he had 4 bachrim from the aspiring kahanim, and they had in their hands jugs of oil, of 120 loig. Now let's assume for a minute a smaller share that a loig is 0.345 liters. Okay, 0.3, let's say, a third of a liter. That would give us 41.4 liters of oil. That's how big this jug was. I figure 40 liters. Right, that's 22 liter bottles. Not bad. That's how much oil there was. That's a smaller amount. And that's you'd fill up, I guess, each safal, each basin held about 10 liters of oil. Now, from the worn out pants of the kahanim and from their belts, they would loosen and tear wicks, and that's what they would use to light. There wasn't a courtyard in Yerushalayim that wasn't lit up from the light of the Beis HaShoeva. Rashi explains because Har Bayis was a har. So if you went from Ma'irav to Mizrach, you were going down. And therefore, if you had, that means that the eastern wall of the Beis HaMikdash didn't go up to, that didn't go higher than these lamps that were 50 amas tall. So they had enough light there to really shine up all of Yerushalayim. It also sounds like the people lived on the eastern side of Yerushalayim. Just to give you a perspective, the western wall that we daven at is the western wall, right? So the Har Bayis was sloping down. If you picture the western wall was the that's in front of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, right? So everybody was on the other side, and it went down from there towards the east. Okay. Now Chasidim v'Anshe Ma'isa hayimeraktim b'fneim. So Chasidim and Anshe, not everybody apparently got to dance at the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. Chasidim and Anshe Ma'isa were the ones being meraked b'fneim, and they had avukei shel or shabiyadein. Rashi says they were juggling either 4 torches or 8 torches. Pretty good. And they would say divish songs and praises. The Leviim were playing on their lyres and their harps, the cymbals, and their trumpets, unlimited amount. There were tons of people playing instruments. And where were they standing? Al Chamesh Esrei Mailis Hayedis Mezes Yisrael Ezras Nashim. There were 15 steps that went from the Ezras Nashim to the Ezras Yisrael. Keneged the Chamesh Esrei Kapitel Shabbatim Shir Malis, the 15 Shir Malis in Tehillim. So there was a step for each one. Shalein Levim Aimdim the Klei Shir. Va'imim Shir, and they would sing Shira. Now the picture. Okay, so we got the steps here are packed with Levium and their instruments. On top of the stairs, there were 2 Gehanim, B'shar ha'elyon, sheyered me'ezras Yisrael Ezras Nashim, on the top gate that went down from Ezras Yisrael to Ezras Nashim. U'shnei chatzos b'yadein, and they had a trumpet. Kara ha'gever, they heard the rooster crow, taku v'ariu v'taku. They blew a tekiah, true a tekiah. Higiu lamala asiris, they walked down 5 stairs. Now they're on the 10th stair. Taku v'riu v'taku. Again, they blew tekiah, true tekiah. Higiu la azara. They reached the bottom stair. Now they're in the azara. Taku ve'riu v'taku. They blew a tekiah, true tekiah. Hayutoikin v'holachin ad shemegian l'shar. Then they would keep blowing, or they keep that going, all the way until they got to the Shar Hayetzim Mizrach, till the eastern gate. Higil l'shar Hayetzim Mizrach, when they reached the gate on the eastern wall, Havchu paneim Mizrach l'Meir. They would turn around and now face Ma'ariv, so they're facing the Beis Hamikdash. And v'amru, and they said, and this is a pasuk in Yecheskel, Aveiseinu shoy b'makei mazeh. That's not the pasuk. This is the pasuk. Achireim el ha'heichel. Their backs were to the heichel. Upeneim kedma, and their faces were eastward. Umishtachavim kedma l'shemesh, and they were bowing to in the east to the sun. Va'anu, but we leka einenu. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Hayushain va'Aimer. They would repeat and they say, Anu leka, we are to you Hashem. Uleka einenu, and to you, to Hashem, are our eyes. So that was the beginning, right? So they'd start blowing at the top. That was the simon to start drawing the water, and then they blow all the way till they got to the end of the gate, and then they bring in the water. It's like the Gumar. Three of these Mishlei Ras. The first one was a Simcha Shreva. You never saw Simcha. Mishlei Ra Yerushalayim b'Tefartav. You didn't see Yerushalayim in its glory. La Yira Krach Nechmad Me'el. You never saw a Chamud, a wonderful, amazing city. Mishlei Ra Beis Hamikdash b'Vinyan. If you didn't see the Beis Hamikdash when it was built, La Ra Binyan before Me'elim. Somebody wants to know, which binyan? Are you talking about Shlomo? Are you talking about Nehemiah's? Are you talking about Herod's? Amar Abaye, v'yitem of the Chizda, Zeb binyan Hordas. We're talking about Hordas's binyan. How did he build it? Amar Rava ba'adnei Sheisha umirma. He used marble. Sheisha, Rashi says, is yarek, and then he says beige. So it was either green or beige stones. Umirma was white, I think. Yes, white marble. Now, some say that he also had blue in there. Now, Apix Safa va'ayel Safa. It went each row went in a little bit. In order that the lime should be able to hold, or the sid should be able to hold it. Several mashayim ba'dahava. So Hordas wanted to coat the whole wall with gold. But instead, Shafke, leave it as is. The Achi it looks better like this. Because there were different colors and they went in and out, it looked like waves of the sea. If you didn't see the Beis HaKnesses of Alexandria, you never saw a real covet to Klal Yisrael. Amru kamin besilki gedayla hayitza. It was like a baskila, a beautiful palace. And there were rows inside. There were times shahayuba kaflaim kiyetzim mitzrayim. 1.2 million people. 600,000 times, and then again 600,000. There were these seats of gold, 71 of them. Each one was no less than 21,000 or 210,000 kikar of zav. So you said there was a bima of wood in the middle. The Chazan HaKnesses Eimer Aleh, and the Chazan would stand on it. This is the Gabbai. V'asudarin biyadeh, and he had flags in his hand. V'kivin she'agia la'anei, someone it was time to answer Amen. Hol ha'meinef besudar, he would wave his flag. V'chol ha'mein Amen, then people would answer Amen. V'hayu yoshin mu'uravin, people didn't sit mixed. There were sections. Zahavin b'fnei atzman, the people who worked with gold, the Caspin, and the ones who worked with silver, b'fnei atzman, v'nefach, coal, b'fnei atzman, v'tirsium, b'fnei atzman, those who deal with copper, gardium, the weavers, b'fnei atzman. Ukishani nechnas sham, when a poor person would come in to shul, so hayimakar ba'alim nasi, he'd find his chavra, v'niftal hasham, u'misham parnasasei, u'mish parnasas anshis beisei, and they'd give him work. So he'd be able to feed his family. Amar Abaye, Vikulu Kotlinu Alexander's Muktin, Alexander the Great of Macedon, he destroyed the whole thing. My time, how come? Why were they punished? Because it's a Meforsha pasuk in the Torah that says, "Light tesifun lashav b'derech hazeh." You shouldn't go back. They went and they settled in Egypt, and it was glorious to the point that was Kvod in Shal Yisrael, and Alexander wiped the whole thing out. Kiasa, why? What happened? Kiasa, when he came there, Ashkechinu dahavu karu b'sifra. He came to shul and he saw that they were learning. And he heard what possibly they're learning. It said, Yisa Hashem alecha goymerachik. Hashem will bring upon you a nation from afar away, and like a vulture would swoop down and take him. Amr Michti, Hu Gavra Ba'i Lamaisa Yisvinta Ba'asar Yemi. I came on the trip, it was supposed to take me 10 days. Dal Yazika, the wind blew, Va'asi Svinta B'chamisha Yemi, and I ended up coming in 5 days. So he saw that as a simon, that he's this vulture that's going to come down and wipe them out. So Nafal Alayu V'katlinu. He fell upon them and he wiped them out. Okay. B'maitze Yamtiv V'chulei. So what was this great tikkun that they established? The Mishnah says that tikkun gadol they did on Maitze Yamtiv. They come and they make this tikkun gadol. What was this tikkun gadol? Amr Abelazar Ka'isa Sheshaninu. This, like we learned, Chalaka Isa Berishena. V'kifua Gezustera. Originally, the Beis Hamikdash was one floor, and what they did was they put a porch or like a deck around the top, so the women would sit upstairs and the men would be downstairs. The Brisa continues. Originally, the women were in the Ezra's Nashim, and the men were outside. Vayuban l'dei kalas roish, and it had kalas roish. What's kalas roish? Lightheadedness. Hiskinu shiyu nashim yeshes milchos. They said, okay, ladies, you're outside, but nashim the men are inside. This way, the men don't have to walk through the ladies to get to the party. But daina yuban l'kalas roish, it wasn't helping. So hiskinu shiyu nashim yeshes milamala v'nashim milamala. So they said, ladies, you're upstairs, men downstairs, and that was the end of it. How'd you do that? His skill. It says everything's got to be done the way, you can't just make up your own plans for the Beis Hamikdash. Beis Hamikdash had plans that were given b'nevuah, so you can't just do that. Amarav kra ashchu v'darosh. They found the pasuk and they dashed the pasuk and that allowed them to do that. And that, Hashem, we will see tomorrow.